So welcome to the first roundtable of the ESSEC Food Business Challenges Foodcast. So the first 45 minutes will be dedicated to discussion between our panel, so our three guests, and the question that we have prepared for them. And then we will open it up to your questions. So please, if you have any questions during the 45 first minutes, ask them in the chat. Also, please be reminded that this 1 hour is recorded. And I will let Philippe introduce the topic and our guests. The question today being, how can a restaurant create a true customer experience?
Thank you, Mariana. And this is a part of the ESSEC Chair, as Marianne said, and it's being produced by the students who are here present, Falco, Marianne, and Ms. Lou. And I am simply acting as, I guess, something a bit of, I'm the assistant. So to put it in context, right, customer service has always been at the core of the hospitality industry. And then we've witnessed, in particular, in the last decade and in this past year, fast-moving changes in behavior, consumption, technology, and all of these have issued in a dynamic, a brand new relationship between the customer and the service provider. There was a recent article in the New York Times suggested that we're transitioning from a transactional economy to a relationship generating economy. So we're seeing changes in technology, trends, tastes, and the dynamic, right, that we referred to. They're all converging now that make the understanding and management of customer experience ever more complex, at the same time more exciting. And that's why we wanted to ask, three of really the most, I guess, well-placed, most successful industry leaders whose businesses have been, have been a linchpin in customer experience. So for André Terrail has taken over from the Tour d'Argent. The Tour d'Argent possesses among the richest and most celebrated, prestigious heritage of any restaurant in the world, right? In 2006, André, third-generation restaurateur, took over the reins of this family-owned iconic brand. And with his strong entrepreneurial spirit and a business degree from INSEAD, the third-generation restaurateur has been realizing his vision and taking this crown jewel of hospitality into the 21st century. He has forged partnerships and brand extensions such as La Rôtisserie d'Argent, a full line of retail projects, which I actually came across and have purchased at the Galerie Lafayette, as well as a number of other forward-thinking initiatives, all the while maintaining the core values, which are true to the brand's rich heritage, while at the same time meeting the demands and sensibilities of this changing market. Not to mention, all the while juggling La Tour d'Argent's international outposts. And then as a sidebar, the restaurant's 400,000 bottle wine cellar has a well-earned mythical status among global enophiles. Jean-Jacques Valfort graduated from ESSEC. And after graduating, he worked in hospitality in the US. And there he was influenced by certain restaurant concepts which he came upon. When he returned to France, that gave him the inspiration for Blend Burger, which was the first of his successful and constantly expanding hospitality empire. With the Panorama Group of eateries, which are some of the most popular and forward restaurants in France, such as Farago and Aster, Valfort possesses an uncanny ability to recognize trends, anticipate needs, and create popular customer experiences. Now, Jean is a true pioneer of the ghost kitchen. In France, they call it dark kitchens, with his Devor group. which manages 7 virtual brands in their kitchens. And this he achieved before the pandemic, which, when you think of it, is almost prophetic. He's changed the paradigm, right, of dining with ghost kitchens and with some of his brands at an extremely important time when this was needed the most. And Michael Bonadies knows the hospitality industry with a depth and breadth and level of insight that is rivaled by precious few anywhere. That he began as a dishwasher and went on to create and consult for some of the most successful and well-known restaurants and hotels globally is evidence of his ability to insights and vision into the industry and leading in customer experience. As a founding partner in Drew Nieperon's Marriott Group, which owns and operates the globally acclaimed restaurants such as Nobu, Proof on Main, which is where we met, and many others, Michael has helped redefine the operations markets and positioning. He utilizes innovative buzzworthy marketing combined with high revenue generating and cost-effective operational concepts. So we can safely say that Michael, right, belongs in this this group of restaurant professionals who are truly among unparalleled and also global in vision and in operation. So we're very, very pleased again to have you all here. I'm going to start with a question for André. And also, if anyone has questions, don't forget, please put them in the chat, and then we'll be curating them after the dialogue. So, André, you've mentioned that along with the customer journey, there should be what you called coherency and consistency. Now, by exposing customers to experiences, right, offerings around the world, social media changes, right, people's expectations, their tastes, their demands. So the question we pose to you is, how do you maintain coherency, consistency in such a fast changing environment, right, when you have social media driving these changes? And how you also had said to us that one of your goals, which we thought was terrific, was to make customers forget about their phones, right? So how do you achieve both of those things, and how do you keep up with the changes that are driven by the social media?
Well, first, thank you, Philip, for the introduction. I'm very honored to be with all of you and with Jean and Michael, and I think I have as much to learn as I can share. So great opportunity here to a little bit share the story of the Tour d'Argent and what we do, we try to do best. Customers are always, have always been a little bit at the center of our goals and experience. It's a bit of a catchphrase probably, but to start with, the first element of your comment is consistency. When we had a little chat prior to this ESSEC roundtable, we have to be true to the promise. We are a luxury brand. We are still a little bit classic. We have this little classic perspective to the brand. We're working on it. So we're introducing new experiences. We have this bakery. We have like this little fine food shop. And we also try to be fun in a very elegant way. So we're trying to rejuvenate the image, but still always be very true to what customers expect. Very simple, or probably a little bit pushed example would be, we're not a vegetarian restaurant. Doesn't mean that vegetarian restaurants are not great. There are fantastic ones. Alain Passard is one of them today. 3-star restaurant, huge. But we have to, how should I say, be consistent with what customers expect. We have the view of Notre Dame. We have a very glorious experience. It's a fine dining service with the maître d'hôtel that comes along, that has a conversation with you. We have a sommelier team. It's probably one of the last restaurants well, there are a few, but not that many have such a big sommelier team. We have 7 sommeliers, making sure the wine experience is really exceptional, plus one guy just making sure you get the right bottle on time at the right temperature with the right glasses. So it's a very glorious experience. Fine dining, the food, of course, is our first concern, always. The chef, Yannick Franck, today, he's a meilleur ouvrier de France. He has this very classic background. Yes, we talk about heritage rather than tradition, meaning that heritage is how do you reinvent tradition to make it contemporary. And it's always our challenge. How do we make the Tour d'Argent the 21st century experience? So how do we maintain this consistency and this how should I say, glorious experience of how are we true to the promise? I would say a little bit, as you mentioned, is we are a very human experience. We have about 70 staff working for approximately 55 customers, so it's really big. Of course, the ticket is quite high. In the evening, we're around 400 euros per person. So we have quite a responsibility to deliver, but I think the relationship that the customers are going to build with the team for the 3.5, sometimes 4 hours experience with us is really key. And to sum it up, and like you said, for us, of course, social media is extremely important, and there are people that do it much better than us, clearly. Yet, probably we can call it a success at the restaurant when people put their phones in their bags and forget about their phones and have a great, fantastic time with their own friends and with us.
Okay. Marion, why don't you punt it to you?
Okay, so we had another question for you, Michael. You've stated that one should distinguish between commodity customers and experienced customers. On this webinar about customer experience, can you explain what you mean by that, and how do you make this distinction, and do you make others?
First of all, thank you very much for the question. Philip, thank you for the great introduction, and Andre and Jean, it's wonderful to be here with you. In terms of commodity versus experience, I got advice early on in my career that there were a lot more eaters than diners. And eaters are not going to go to Le Tour d'Argent. They eat to live. They don't eat to enjoy themselves particularly, or make their decisions based around which restaurant they want to go to, which bar they want to go to. So my career has always been built on the experienced customer. And for that, it really comes down to, what are you famous for as a restaurant or bar, or what could you be famous for? So that, there's a clear proposition why you want to go there, what you want to experience. It might be the chef, it could be the flowers, it could be like at Proof on Main, we had more bourbons than anybody else in the city of Louisville, or it could have been Montrachet, which we never were able to rival Andre's wine cellar, but within the context of New York, it was pretty good. And it certainly made it a destination for that experienced customer, whether they were somebody new and young to wine, or somebody, had great experience. And within the experienced customer, there's great breadth of the beginner to the expert. So it's always thinking about conceptualizing restaurants and evolving restaurants to sort of address the desires of those experienced customers in the best way possible.
Okay, thank you. So we've had a little hints on Michael and Andre's ideas and philosophy. Jean, next one's for you. So you mentioned that restaurants are the new dining room. So what do you mean with this philosophy, and how do you express this idea through your different concepts, both brick and mortar and in delivery? Did you lose Mr. Valfort?
Jean, your mic is off.
On vous entend pas.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So I was saying that I'm happy to be here. I'm saying it again. And to share ideas with you. I think that the restaurant is, because we have to ask ourselves, what is a restaurant? And I really think that it is a means to enjoy an absolutely recurring moment of your life, which is basically eating. And I agree with Michael when he said that there is a difference between a person that is eating and a person that is dining. And what we want to create here in our restaurant is to help people stop eating and start dining, because basically we're lucky enough to eat 2 to 3 times a day, and what we want to do with our restaurant is to make sure that people enjoy that moment instead of basically just having to do it. So with our restaurants, we've tried to create a place that can replace the dining room in your apartment, because we believe that especially in big cities like Paris, like New York, the price of the square meter makes it really difficult to spend money in your flat. So you need somewhere to enjoy your dinner. That's what we do with our restaurants. And we've created Dark Kitchen, which is now Devor, because we believe also that people can't afford a private chef. And with the technology nowadays, we have a solution to help them enjoying other times, enjoying other moments in their life and not spending too much time in cooking. So we cook for them, basically. We do it in our restaurants that are made for delivery, and we deliver the food to their places. That's what we do. And we are kind of trying to, in French, there is a philosophical concept that is called sublimation, which is, okay, it's already hard to explain that in French, so I will try to explain it in English, which is basically trying to turn something that is part of the current life into something that is beautiful. And what we do with our restaurants, what we do with our delivery system is trying to sublimate the eating process.
You mentioned, which is a very good insight. Now, speaking about eating, right? We've been talking about the eating and the experience. And you had mentioned, Jean, at one point that you design concepts with Instagrammability in mind, right? And there seems to be a paradox these days that there's an increased engagement, right, with social media, right? People taking pictures, people sharing their experiences, people becoming part of the experience. So there's a paradox between people being more engaged, but at the same time, there seems to be a growing demand for analog or face-to-face, right? That's evidenced by, for example, if you look at businesses like ticket sales, concerts, things like that, restaurants even, right? Just the fact people want to see each other. So these two, right, seemingly different at odds experiences, online and in person. Building for Instagram, and then there's for putting your phone away. So something that we wanted to ask all three of you is, how do you reconcile these trends, right, between digital and analog, that both of which are trends that are growing? Okay, so to whoever would want to answer it first.
I'll jump in. Well, when you think about it, restaurants are one of the last face-to-face businesses in the world. And when you talk about relationships and the relationship economy, I mean, restaurants have historically, since the very first one, succeeded because of relationships. And then they thrive because restaurants are great storytellers. and we create stories, we tell compelling stories, and we tell consistent stories. You know, and Le Tour d'Argent is a perfect example of a great story that's being told now through the third generation. So we have an obligation to create and tell great stories. And within these stories, and I learned this from a guy who worked for me, who went to San Francisco on a research trip, and he came back and all he did was say, "Oh shit, that was so cool. Oh shit, that was so cool," as he showed me the photographs. And you know, this was before social media, of all the cool things that he saw in restaurants and bars in San Francisco. And you know, that's what we need to do as restaurateurs, is we're creating experiences, but we're also it's especially with social media today and people's desire to share and retell our story, it's incredibly important to create these "oh shit, that is cool" moments throughout the dining experience, throughout the bar experience, so that in essence, we're creating apostles who are going to go out and preach our story, share our story, and win new converts. So I think that's how that face-to-face works. I think also, you know, the one thing that we've all terribly missed is that lack of social interaction with others in restaurants and bars. And it certainly led to the plummeting birth rate, at least here in the States, and I think elsewhere. And, you know, one thing that, you know, I realized early on in my career that, you know, the two sacred duties as restaurateurs was, one, help people spend money, and two, you know, help continue the human race. So I'm very optimistic that we're returning to normal and people getting back together.
Well put.
To answer your question about this, because we were talking about the fact that André is trying to make his client put their phone down on the table or in their bag when they're having dinner, which is something really difficult nowadays. So we are really in between two things here, because the phone for us is really a good marketing tool, and basically that helps us creating some images for clients to come to our places. But once they're here, we want them to forget about their phones. So what we've seen, for example, I have this restaurant in Nice, which is called Bocanissa. We've realized that people don't take that many pictures when they are at the table, but they take a lot of pictures when they are in a bathroom, because we've made that bathroom that is really incredible. And maybe the solution is to create an experience that is so crazy when you're alone somewhere, and in a restaurant, when you're alone somewhere, basically it's when you're at the bathroom. So that people post that kind of videos on the internet, and that's good marketing, good communication for you. And then the experience in a dining room, the experience at the table must be so intense that people forget about their phone. So we have to find the right balance between a good experience that is Instagrammable, but also an amazing food experience that makes you forget about your phone once you're at the table and once you're having dinner with your friends. And I think with Bocanissa, we've reached a goal, which is your friends and the food are more important than your phone. But when you're going to the toilets, then you make some good advertising for us.
Right.
I love
Sounds
that.
like
Very cool.
sounds like you're becoming a producer, right? Sounds like where you really have to have a strategy now, breaking down the experience among not just different targets, but also within an overall experience within the restaurant. You have different experiences going on.
Yes, because when you think about it, when you're going to a restaurant, so you have several, like the timing is really important in a restaurant. So, and basically when you're at the table, you're having an experience, and then you're like all of a sudden saying, okay, stop, I need to go to the bathroom. And it's like temps mort in French. I'm going to the bathroom. It's a totally different experience. I'm alone. Like I have to do what I have to do. And really, it's less noisy. You know, there is less music. It's like, how do you say temps mort in English? How do you say entr'acte?
Time out.
Time out. Yeah, kind of time out.
Break.
And we have to make sure that this time out is part of the experience. And it's a different experience from the time in, I would say, which is when you're sitting at the table with your friends. And that's what we want to work on.
Okay, very good.
So Andre,
André?
how do you feel about this reconciliation of digital and analog?
Well, it's very cool to hear about Jean's experience in the matter, and we are actually working on it at the tour. It has a name. It's called a selfie toilette, you know, and every influencer that has an Instagram account that goes to a palace or a Bocanissa, a cool restaurant in the south, you know, they will go to the toilet at some point and have a selfie toilet. But the social media has also brought in some very positive aspects, which is the fact that we were suddenly able to shortcut the journalists. And that was interesting also, even for us, even for like a kind of an old established brand like the Tour, because we don't always have to go through the traditional big names in the media to get coverage. We have some young influencers, and interestingly enough, sometimes we have some really cool coverage from those young influencers, which we do sometimes invite because it's important for us. It creates great coverage. So it did bring us a lot of attention also.
Very cool. Notice you've all mentioned storytelling right here, and the role that customers play right in storytelling is part of what we're talking about here with Instagram and social media. Jean, you have mentioned in your ghost kitchens these windows. You mentioned that facing the street are windows that people can watch the chefs working, right? Almost as if it were a screen, people watching food TV, right? And so what we're talking about here sounds like there's the storytelling now is partly in the hands of the customer, but you all and also Andre has mentioned theater, the food as theater. So this idea of they're not only storytellers, you're storytellers, but there's also this theater of eating, this theatrical experience, and people witnessing that, being an audience, that watching the, you know, and you have cameras. Many of you have open kitchens. What are your thoughts on this convergence, right, of entertainment, which is not to belittle the food, but this convergence of entertainment experience and dining experience?
Am I the one who's supposed to answer, or?
Oh, no, man, it's open to all of you. You're the one. I'd be interested to have you started off, because with your windows, right, the windows you have on your ghost kitchens, because the experience, the part of the customer experience of the ghost kitchens, because ghost kitchens is delivered, right? So part of the experience is the people who are watching the meals being prepared.
To explain what we're talking about, we you know, with this ghost kitchen business, it's a bit criticized nowadays, and some critics, some restaurateurs, they don't like that idea because they think it's dark, you know. So we know, because we have restaurants, we know that it is important to be really transparent about the food we prepare, and on top of that, we think that cooking is a real show. So that's why our dark kitchens, so-called dark kitchens, are always open on the main street. And with large windows, you can walk by the kitchen and see the cooks cooking. And we believe it's part of the experience, but also of the transparency we need to give to our clients. That's also the reason why in our restaurants, in every single restaurant we have, the kitchen is open. Because we think that it's important to have an idea of what the kitchen is looking like. You can see when the kitchen is open, you can see if it's clean. You can see the face of the cook, of the chef. You can see their hands. You can see the food they're using to prepare your meal. And I believe this is really important. And the second thing is that, you know, for some reason, I don't know if it's a French thing, but we always want to have a look at what is going on in the kitchen, because it's a real show and maybe makes the food taste better when you've seen who is cooking it and how he is cooking it. So we've wanted to put this show in both our businesses, our restaurants, but also our ghost kitchens, so that clients can have the same experience when they are eating in our restaurants or when they are walking by one of our kitchen before ordering their food from home. I believe that Tour d'Argent, the kitchen is not open, but it was another era, you know, it's.
Yeah, well, we might be surprised to see the evolutions. We have a bakery downstairs, just across the street. And so all the baking area, not the pastry has to remain in a cold place, but all the baking for the breads and viennoiserie, it's all open and it's all windows around. It was important for us to actually show how the bread is done and also create some animation for the area, the quarter, this area in Paris, and it has worked really well. That's I think open kitchens and such is clearly a very strong trend today. I'd like to comment on the fact that well, Jean is clearly one of the big entrepreneurs today. I actually incidentally ordered from I think one or two of his places without knowing. I think it was Poutine, which was pretty cool. And I strongly believe that home dining is probably not a game changer, but it's a lasting trend. And we should not believe that it's something that has just happened with COVID. It's clearly a competitor, even for a big like fine dining restaurant, because customers will always have the possibility to stay at home, put the music they want, have the friends they like at whatever time they want, drink cheaper wines because they've bought it themselves, smoke if they want, with a very private atmosphere. So it's clearly something to take into account. And we've seen those new players come with some very, very interesting and strong proposals that are really questioning and coming into customers' minds in a very lasting way.
You're saying that home dining is a game changer, André, and obviously.
I'm not saying it's a game changer. I think it's a trend that should be taken into account. Of course, French people are very happy to go back to restaurants and terraces, but there will be a percentage of the customers that will still, because they've had a great experience at one of those delivery, they will order again. And the experience is sometimes very interesting. You have a little heart, you have a note, you have a little, it's very interesting how the players have improved the experience even for home delivery.
Yes. So about that, we wanted to ask the three of you, how do you see yourselves delivering your brand message to off-site consumers? What do you do, and how do you make sure that the quality and the relationship with the customer is maintained through this way of consuming?
I think that it's critically important to try to control the process as much as possible. And kudos to Jean for being ahead of the curve. I wish there were ghost kitchens around earlier in my career. I think we could have had a lot of fun with the possibilities. And I think what Andre mentioned is, how do you personalize the delivery experience? What can you share of your brand? And whether it's a thank you note, whether it's a QR code that links to your soundtrack. I think there's lots of little things to do. And obviously, the projects I've worked on in relation to delivery or ghost kitchens, the focus has been on, what works for delivery. And, and are you willing as a restaurateur or chef to adapt your menu or the steps involved in creating each dish, to make sense for delivery and to ensure a quality product. There's great food that just doesn't work for delivery. So I think that's a very important thing to understand. And, and can you adapt as part of your brand, or do you need to take advantage of a ghost kitchen and create a new brand, as an additional revenue source? I think, I think that's very intriguing for a lot of people, a lot of creative people. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to, launch a virtual brand than open a brick and mortar new restaurant that may work or may not work. You can test it. And I think that's an invaluable aspect of ghost kitchens that we're going to increasingly see, is that creativity that it allows. Also, it allows, I think, somebody to do something very narrow, very focused, that wouldn't necessarily work in most, brick and mortar spaces.
So Andre, how do you feel that your food is able to adapt to this new?
Well, we have to strengthen our delivery. We did a few deliveries during COVID times, but not with the fine dining, with the bistro. And we also clearly realized that it's a tough mission, and there are specialists such as Jean on some of his brands. So it's tough to make sure customers receive, the food packaged in the right way, and on time and all that. It's very complex. As for the fine dining, well, again, I'll come back to the very human experience of the staff and the connection that has to appear between our maître d'hôtel and the customers. We have to make sure, there's a little bit connection of this time of relief and kind of like you're taken care of. You're at home, relax, put your seat on the table and enjoy the moment with us. And also discussions with the sommelier, discussions with the maître d'hôtel, the chef that comes in the dining room, and sometimes he serves a little dish. The very human experience is even more, much more important than before. Well, it was already there, but probably we clearly identified it as important.
So Jean, at some point you told us that you believe that France was not that ready for a delivery lifestyle experience compared to other areas. Can you explain this idea, and maybe Andre and Michael, who develop also customer experience across multiple countries and multiple culture, can weigh in with your thoughts?
I think it's interesting what Andre said about the competition that might appear between restaurants and delivery at home, because it will maybe be something that will happen in a few years or decades. But for now, I truly believe that we do another job than, I own restaurants, so we're doing both. But with the delivery business, I truly believe that we're more, it is a commodity, people, they order from our delivery restaurants because they need to eat. They don't need to dine. And basically, that's what we provide to them. And that's also why we only have, for now, brands that are around street food, burgers, poutine, fried chicken, things like that. We have tried some more like, I don't know, Mediterranean food, tapas food, and basically they don't order. You don't make money for now with delivery, with these kitchens. So that leads me to say that for now, people use delivery platforms and usually get delivered because they need to eat and not because they want to organize a dinner with friends. That might be something coming, but for now, at least in France, it is not a thing yet. So that's why I'm saying that the lifestyle is not part of the delivery business yet. It's interesting because yesterday I've seen a video from one of our competitors, not to, yeah, I will tell you his name. It's Taster, and this video is really interesting because we're thinking about doing the same. It's a video that basically explains that getting delivered can be part of your life because it helps you doing other things than cooking. And I think that once you've understood that, then delivery can become a part of your life and some kind of lifestyle. And I think we need to work a little bit more on this in the coming few years. The COVID-19 has helped a lot. So it's been really painful for restaurants. So that's another story. But for delivery, of course, it's been really a game changer because it has helped us show that we exist, basically. And maybe now in 2022, 23, we will have to work on this lifestyle experience to help people consume delivery, not only to eat, but also to enjoy, like, I don't know, a nice dinner with friends.
But I think I'd like to probably disagree a bit just for the sake of the argument. I've seen probably it's maybe a little bit of a high-end clientele, but I've seen an offer of pretty well done fine dining delivery. I'm thinking of La Réserve in Paris, which has jumped in very quickly. Of course, we all tried it as soon as it came out because we were curious, you know, how is the guy doing that? And it was, honestly, it was really good and not that expensive. You have Alliance in Paris, which was doing a really good job, I thought. Lazare, also more on the brasserie style. What was interesting in those experiences is you did realize how much time they've tried to change the way they approach the packaging and the delivery. One of the big problems that will arise is, of course, the use of plastic, because probably one of the only ways I felt that you could get some decent delivered food was through separately vacuum-packed elements with instructions on the cooking times and temperatures. And once you got that, I think it was relatively difficult to miss the cooking. And I did organize quite a few dinners when restaurants were closed, with Alliance especially, actually quite a lot. And I thought it was really good and cheap compared to the on-site price. I think there's a few that have done it. I don't know if it's going to carry on. Probably Jean is right in the fact that it was just a happening.
That was
I don't know.
That was my question, because I truly believe that they were doing it because they were closed.
That's true.
And it's really difficult to do both. You know, when we first started delivery, we were doing it from our restaurant Farago in Paris. Mm-hmm. And after a year and a half, we just stopped doing it because there is a difficulty to make sure that your room is happy and make sure that your clients at home are happy. Because when you have riders with helmets coming through the restaurant, and it's not good for your clientele. that is sitting in the room.
But don't you think that there might be in the near future, like probably I'm just talking out loud, but some kind of fine dining dark kitchen that can provide you at a ticket of maybe 65 euros, 85 euros?
Yeah, I'd agree with both of you. I mean, I think the opportunity comes based on physical plant. And what you're seeing in the States now is hotels reaching out to operators and hotels that have underutilized very large kitchens where an operator can come in and set up a fine dining line that's deliver only. You know, to Jean's point, you know, the limitations of your kitchen, your firepower, and obviously do you have a separate entrance for the delivery drivers is key to segregate that experience from the guest experience. And obviously the last thing any of us want as an operator is, you know, a busy night and suddenly, you know, the board is packed with to-go orders and a full restaurant, and, you know, somebody's going to be unhappy. You know, the solution that I'm seeing here in the States is if somebody has a separate line or goes into an underutilized space so that they can actually do it well. I think you have to dedicate yourself. I don't think the fine dining delivery is going to be a huge piece of business, but I think it could be very profitable. Friends of mine in New York have done very, very well with it. And it's succeeded when typically it's usually not one meal, but it's multiple meals along with a wine package. And, you know, they are not going to not go to these restaurants. It's simply they're not going to maybe go to a local restaurant near their house in New Jersey or New York, or they're not going to get takeout from a local restaurant. So I think it's what our customers deal with today is time compression, and nobody has enough time. So I think the convenience of any kind of high quality delivery and takeout is very beneficial to help them deal with that. And I think also in terms of, you know, the experiences we create in our restaurants, you know, are we creating value for the time spent? And I think that's almost more important for a lot of guests today when they leave a restaurant or a bar. You know, was my time well spent?
And there is another problem. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but regarding fine dining delivery, compared to what we do today, which is street food delivery, which is the staff. Because honestly, you don't have the same skills in a dark kitchen that you have in a kitchen of a traditional restaurant. And you will never have the same staff because the staff that is working in a traditional restaurant and that might be skilled enough to do fine dining will never work in a dark kitchen because they don't like it, because they want to be part of the restaurant experience, because they want to, you know, it's a kind of a drug to work in a kitchen.
Absolutely, that's a great point.
And working in a dark kitchen is more operations than cooking. Basically, you're just following the operations that we have been thinking of for a few months, and then you just apply. It's like McDonald's, you know? So asking staff that work at McDonald's to realize fine dining delivery might be a real issue in the future.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I think the point I'm trying to make is, does the fine dining restaurant have enough firepower on their prep line or elsewhere that's accessible to them where they can use the same staff? And obviously, you know, part of that's driven by, you know, what is the labor availability? And certainly, I don't know what it's like in France, but everybody's scrambling for staff here and right now. So if that doesn't change, I mean, it's going to be a challenge for everybody to do delivery out of their own kitchens.
Or maybe someday, maybe it will be us, you will have, when you create your restaurant, you will have to make sure that you build it so that there is the room on the one side and then the delivery platform on the other side. And the kitchen can do both at the same time.
That's already happening here in the States. A number of people, you know, particularly in certain areas where they had the ability to expand their kitchen, have done exactly that.
Oh, yeah.
And talking to kitchen designers here I know a lot of them are working on new restaurants where a delivery line, a separate door is all part of the programming and design of the new restaurant.
That's interesting. That might be the future.
I think if it's all under one roof and the chef can oversee both, then you have a greater insurance of quality. It's also, is that a stepping stone for a line cook to work on the delivery line before they're ready to move up to the kitchen, the dining room line?
So I think as time flies, maybe we should give the opportunity to our audience to ask some of their questions. So we had one from Corinne. Corinne, would you want to ask a question maybe?
Yes, thank you, Marion. Well, thank you very much, you guys. It is definitely very enlightening to get your views on those hot topics. My question was mostly related to the impact of the COVID-19 crisis, especially on the regarding the physical restaurant footfall. How do you think it would be affected given the acceleration we obviously had on some other channels, especially regarding the eating needs, of course, much more than dining needs, but it will probably affect, I mean, the physical restaurant footfall, and especially let's say the fast casual and traditional ones. So how do you think it will be, I mean, how do you think the customer behavior will be affected regarding the simple fact of going to a restaurant? Do you think they will be likely to go less frequently to the restaurant and be more selective regarding the whole experience? Or would it be just like before? I would be really interested to get your views.
I think we're going to return to normal as we are in the States very quickly. In the States, the bars were the hardest hit by COVID because they were shut down typically the longest. There was no bar stools allowed, no standing at the bars. And the one thing we haven't really talked about is the importance of bars and restaurants. And I think that our need as social animals to gather, to converse, to be face-to-face is so innate that COVID's not gonna stop us from meeting our friends for a drink or dinner or lunch. We're gonna go back to normal pretty soon, especially once, and I've seen that, once people are vaccinated, and certainly I'm in the New York City area, so very high vaccination rate, and the restaurants are packed. And I think we've missed it so much. We've all can't wait to get back out there and visit our favorite restaurants. I just feel very optimistic that for the industry.
Okay, and do you think they will stay that way in the long run?
I think it's going to get better.
Okay.
I think people realize what they missed from COVID. I think, a lot of people are making decisions. There's an article in one of the publications here in the States yesterday. Over 40% of all workers in the United States are thinking of quitting their job. So that's certainly a lot of that's lifestyle change.
Yeah.
And when there's an emphasis on your lifestyle and that, you only live once, I think restaurants, bars become so much more attractive, and we want to take advantage of them all that much more.
So basically the cake is growing.
As
an addition with the new channels and the, let's say.
Yes, I mean, listen, it also gets back to the convenience, and I think it was, I don't know if it was André or Jean, do I want to cook or do I want to order out because I can do something else? It becomes that multiplicity. How can I get the most out of my time? Because COVID's taught us our time is short. So how do we squeeze the most out?
Thank you very much, Michael.
Welcome.
Have you been, like, I don't know if you live in Paris, but
I do.
Have you walked through Paris in the last few weeks?
It is crazy. It is crazy. But my point was more, what about in the long run?
I totally agree with Michael when he says that they have realized how important going to a restaurant can be. And because of the COVID-19, because they were not able to do it, they have realized that restaurants in general are like vital for the city, vital for their life. And for this, COVID-19 will be really helpful in the future, I think.
Yeah, and it's also, listen, great restaurants and great bars are why we live in New York City or Paris.
Thank you very much.
So we had one question from Nicholas. Would you ask your question?
Do you want to read it?
Oh, your question that his mic doesn't work. Okay, so I think that was mainly for Jean Valfort, but maybe the other can weigh in. So it was, how did you conceptualize your ghost kitchen virtual brands? Was it based on what you had in your existing restaurants, or did you see gaps in local offering?
No, we don't sell in our ghost kitchens the same kind of food we sell in our restaurant. So of course there are some products that we can sell in our restaurant, for example, a burger, but we don't capitalize on what we do in our restaurants to do it in our ghost kitchens. Usually it's based on data that we ask to the platform. For example, they tell us, okay, there is a gap here because there is a lot of like clients. For example, Putin is a good example for that. We didn't know what a Putin was like before Uber Eats came to us and said, okay, we had a lot of people trying to buy Putin in this arrondissement and nobody sells because nobody does Putin. So we've created that Putin because that's what we do. And we know how to create products and food. And that's how we created the brand that is working really well now. So first, it's data. Second, I would say it's kind of, we want to try. We are hiring this guy that is in charge of listening to the web and seeing those trends in the US, in New York, in Los Angeles, in, I don't know, in Japan, and saying, this is coming to Europe because we're always a little late and we just cook after that and sell it on the platform. And what is easy is that you can try. If it's not working, you can just change the brand and do it again. So I would say the main way to create a good dark kitchen brand is data and gut feeling.
The gut feeling, and both of those you mastered at ESSEC, correct? I mean, in study.
Yeah.
Did you have any more questions, Marion?
Yeah, Olga, I think you had one more questions. Do you want to ask it?
Yes, thank you very much for this webinar. Just a quick question about the trends in the restaurant dining business. So, I mean, if we talk about the physical restaurant and I mean, what it means to have different types of restaurants. So, for example, I noticed, I mean, of course, there are traditional restaurants, there are different types of restaurants, but do you observe any trends now in the restaurant business, any new trends, or where is the, let's say, restaurant dining experience moving towards in the future, according to you? So just to, I mean, you who know well the industry, just to have your take on the big trends that are happening now. Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
Go ahead.
Well, quite a few trends were already existent, but we did open when the restaurant was closed last November. We opened a little fine food shop along the Quai de la Tournelle, and the idea was to be present for the customers, maintain contact, and offer great products from our suppliers, which most of them, they kind of lost a lot of their revenues, and it has helped us in being actually much more local. It's something that we didn't even think about that much at the beginning. But now, for example, we opened the restaurant last week. By the way, please come and visit. We're a cool restaurant. We reopened with a cheese tray, which exclusively cheeses from the Paris region, which was something we would have never done a few years ago. But suddenly we had tried so many cheeses from farms, especially in Seine-et-Marne, and we had time with the chef and the restaurant manager. So we had time on our hands. So we went to visit farms and we tasted some pretty incredible things. And we said, okay, let's do that. And so I mean, local food is definitely a trend, and it's a very logical trend at the end. We also we decided that took some time to make the decision, but we decided to have only filtered water at the restaurant, which was quite a strong decision for a fine dining, expensive restaurant where customers suddenly cannot ask for their regular Châteldon or Badois or Evian. And we have only filtered water. It's the 0 kilometer water because we have to take into account the carbon footprint. Interestingly enough, last week, the restaurant was almost full all the time, and not a single customer complained. On the contrary, they thought that the decision was almost logical, like why didn't we take it long before? So this, we also do compost. We decided to work with Moulineau in north of Paris to compost a lot of the food waste. So that's very interesting. We've been working with Too Good To Go with our bakery since we opened. So all those, and we're actually analyzing how we can become carbon neutral, but it's a bit complex, as everybody knows. So this social responsibility or social impact is definitely, it's not even like a cool new thing anymore. It's an absolute obligation.
I'd agree with Andre, absolutely with that. Here in the States, we're seeing that particularly outside of the cities where restaurateurs have worked with farmers and actually working with the governments. And this really happened during COVID to feed people in need, where there's a real emphasis on reestablishing the local food systems that have been decimated by industrial agricultural over the last 50, 60 years. The important trend that I'm focused on is a bigger bar and more bars in a restaurant. We talked about the energy that an open kitchen brings. Bars bring a similar energy, and I think that's very important moving forward. They're also the sociability of bars and the lower cost of entry that a bar represents, even in a fine dining restaurant, are very important moving forward.
Very interesting.
I think the main trend for us is shared plates, because it's really part of the experience. And what we do at Boccanissa, Farago, we can compare it to other restaurants. And I think that as long as you're trying to give an experience to your clients, and as long as they're coming not to eat, but to enjoy a dinner and enjoy a table with friends, tapas and shared plates are really good means. And I think it's a strong trend in the dining industry. Talking about restaurants only.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions, Mario?
So I don't have more questions. So if one of you wants to have a question before
Well, there's a question that that the ESSEC students had come up with, which may be one we could ask all three of you. Is there in your, because you all obviously are leaders, thought leaders in creating customer experience, what might be some examples of concepts or places or that you have been wowed by, right? Places that really impressed you, where you had that, wow, I wish I'd thought of that kind of moment, or something that you all who are so accomplished at creating customer experiences that you yourselves were blown away by. This would be to all, I guess, to all three of you.
My last great experience at a restaurant was at Chiltern Firehouse in London. I don't know if anybody here has been there. That was really great. There is this old firehouse that has been transformed into a restaurant, a wide open kitchen. It's pretty fancy, but not too much. There is a nice terrace. Really, if you go to London, you should try this restaurant.
Was there something specific about the experience?
It's too difficult to describe, you know.
Okay, we'll go.
The kind of place, you know, when you open the door and there is this, I don't know, like feeling this atmosphere, this tension, and you see people cooking. I don't know how to describe that. You must go. You must.
Okay, well that's pretty impressive. If it's
look at the pictures on the internet and you will see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Very cool experience in Paris, and I think it goes along those crossover concept. It's a hotel. Well, it's Hotel Paris, so in actually east of Paris, and it's a crossover between a cinema and a hotel. Incidentally, I was lucky to get a room, and you can actually have your full kind of dining experience in your room, and you're overlooking the cinema, and you have like rooms with the screen comes down and they bring you the tray with your dinner, and you're with your loved one, and you have a pretty cool cinema experience in your room. And so I'm definitely sure there's going to be more crossover concepts such as this one.
For me, it would be Carbone's and Dante's Cafe in New York City, which are two opposite ends of the Italian-American dining experience. And I think they both elevated them in very interesting ways. And certainly one of the secrets to success in New York for a restaurant is the crowd it attracts. Dante's gets a great bohemian downtown crowd, and only a couple of blocks away, Carbone's gets the high-powered, you know, New York power customer. So I think they both are really well done, and sort of two really clever interpretations of a genre, perhaps, and that's gotten a little tired, or had gotten a little tired. And I think you know, that's really interesting, not just to be creative and do something very new, but take something old and reinterpret it in a compelling way.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, so now thank you for all of your questions. I think that time is flying, so we'll just thank you, everyone. Thank you for our guests for your interesting insights, and thanks also to all of the attendees for participating to this webinar. So we hope that all of your curiosities were awakened along with your appetites. And so I would just wish you a good evening now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.